you came back. Welcome back to Opposites in a Nutshell. I'm Shay, and y'all, we spilled so much tea last week, but before we even get to that, I just want to say thank you so much on behalf of Jasmine and myself for supporting us. Like, this is our 4th episode that we're dropping, and y'all are still rocking with us. You guys are amazing, and we can't say thank you enough. But anyways, this episode is part 2 of our relationships and the lessons that we learned from them, except Jasmine and I talked too much, so this ended up being a lot more than that. So y'all stick around, and here is our relationships part 2. Hey everyone, what's up? We're back with another episode of Opposites in a Nutshell. I'm sure you noticed our video is kind of like a cliffhanger type situation. Don't worry about it. Technical difficulties, but it worked out in our favor because now we have a whole part 2. So, I guess we should introduce ourselves. I'm Shay.
I'm Jasmine. We are 2 best friends who are complete opposites.
Yes.
On this podcast, we're going to just discuss just different things that we've had phone conversations about or in our daily lives.
Yeah.
And add some encouraging tips towards the end and some fun things. We're going to have a whole lot of fun.
Yeah. So basically, I guess you can count this as part 2 of our relationships, our relationship episode rather. So, I guess what better way than to get right back into it?
Let's get into it.
So, if I remember correctly, last time, Jasmine, you had just finished, kind of explaining a little bit of your background and, your dating history, I guess, your dating relationships and whatnot. And I guess we can kind of like do a quick recap. So for me, this is kind of going back into the whole opposites thing. So for me, I never really dated much. Not never really, like I really just never dated much. It's just the statement. And Jasmine, on the other hand, had a very different experience than I did.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's like the long short of it. If you don't know our stories, go listen to the previous episode.
Yeah.
But anyways, I guess we can continue with that. So, one of the things, just continuation from our last conversation was, these were some things that I kind of thought about as you were explaining, your history and, the different, situations or, experiences you've had. These are some things that I jotted down that I was like, wow, that's so different. And so one of them was male friendships. You talked about how, you had a lot of male friends, and I was like, I grew up without really having male friends. Like, I had male acquaintances, but like, yeah, I didn't really have male friends, like in high school. And if my high school friends are watching this, homies, I'm not saying that y'all were my friends.
Clarify for the people.
No, I feel like I had male acquaintances, but I can't think of any guys that I could be like, oh, that was my friend. Like, we're good friends. And yeah, I didn't really have that.
Yeah. See, I was definitely opposite.
Yeah.
I feel like I had just as many male friends as female friends.
Yeah.
And just the whole gamut. Like, if I was having female friends over, I had male friends over.
Yeah.
My parents were open to, I guess, me having both.
Mm-hmm.
And, I don't know, I had brothers, my brothers, their friends. I'd hang out with them and I'd consider them my friends. Then I had my own group of male friends.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I grew up with both friends.
Yeah.
And I mean, in my phone back then, writing each other letters before, everything, all the Facebook and whatnot, but I always had both female and male friends. Like, we were actually good friends. Like, they call me, I call them. They come to my parties, I go to their parties. I mean, this is 4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, all the way up.
Yeah.
And then in just different, for different reasons, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, we're studying.
Yeah.
Oh, well, so-and-so is doing really well in geometry. I didn't go out of my way to pick, a girl to study with. I just was like, oh, well, he's smart.
Yeah.
And I need his help or whatever, and vice versa.
Yeah.
It just organically happened. I never singled out anyone. It just was, and I was never afraid or ashamed, and nothing was ever like, like where it's like, oh, well, because I like him. You know, because there were some people that were like, because I like him.
Ulterior motives.
Yes, yes. It was just, okay, well, you know what you're doing. Help me out here.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm trying to remember. I also don't have that many. I mean, that's not true. I have memories of like high school and stuff, but like, I don't know. It's just, when I think about it, I will say this. I did have some guys' phone numbers because obviously we're friends enough to have phone numbers. But like, I just never really we never really hung out. So like, even, I'm trying to remember. Okay, I take that back. There was one guy that I would say is probably the closest thing that I had to a male friend.
Okay. Well, there's one, people. There's one. There's at least one. There's always gotta be one.
Yeah, I mean, but like the rest of them, honestly, they were just like male acquaintances.
That is so, y'all, we are so different.
Yeah, I really just hung out with all the girls. And then when I went to college, though, it flipped. Then I had way more guy friends than I had girls. And so it was always like Shay and the guys. That was like the norm. Okay. And I think for me, it wasn't even a thing of like my parents. Like my parents did not have any concerns of anything like that. Like my siblings, I think I've mentioned them before. I have a younger brother and a younger sister. And my siblings, like they had friends of like all sexes, like it didn't matter. But for me, I feel like I definitely sheltered myself growing up. So, like it wasn't my parents that sheltered me. Like I for sure sheltered myself because my experience growing up is different from like my siblings' experiences. And so, I was the goody two shoes. I'm the firstborn. So, I feel like that kind of comes with the territory. But yeah. And so, yeah, cause I self-sheltered. I was just like, I don't really need friends and my brain also was kind of like, what's the point in having male friends? Because then I'm probably just going to end up liking them and blah, blah, blah. That was like my teenage like mindset. And I'm pretty sure that's kind of where that stemmed from. So it wasn't like I was actively like, I'm not going to have any guy friends. I just didn't. And I always hung out with the girls. So like it just naturally like, yeah. But I mean, there are guys, like I said, like that I was cool with in school. I just feel like maybe my definition of friend is different from like, that could be like the starting point. Cause it's not like there weren't any males in my life whatsoever. Like I did have guys that I talked to, but like things like talking on the phone, texting, like I just didn't do that with guys. And so, yeah, I don't know.
Gosh. So if any of my guy friends from elementary to high school are watching, y'all know who you are. It's a long list. I think I even at some point, how you talk about in college, you switched to being Shay and the guys. Yeah. I think at some point I probably was hanging out with my guy friends more than I was hanging out with my homegirls, just based on availability or what I was doing when I was really into playing sports and running track and playing basketball. They were the ones who were doing those things when the rest of my friends were like, oh, we want to go to the mall. And I'm like, I'm going to go play basketball. Yeah. Like, cause that's what I wanted to do. And it just so happened that there are more guys than girls. And,
would you have considered yourself a tomboy?
Yes and no.
Okay.
I mean, yes and no, because I did enjoy playing sports and playing, video games, but not so much that it was that intense.
Yeah.
Because I still did, identify and all that as a girl, and I liked wearing skirts, and I still was very girly.
Yeah.
What I thought was still girly.
I know. I was definitely the girly girl with all the boys.
Oh, really? Oh, no. When we sweat and when I was with the boys,
I didn't do all that. No, I'm not trying to be out here sweating. Oh, no, thanks. Like, oh, we're going to a concert. Yes, let's go. Oh, y'all gonna play video games. I'll sit here and watch.
Oh, no, that was not me. Nope. I was like, y'all better not let me win. And I was competitive.
Yeah.
Cause I was competitive as a kid. Oh yeah, no.
Yeah, no, that. Mm-mm. Yeah. Anyways, that's so interesting. It's so interesting. But
so what made the switch? What talk about what made the switch in college when you talk about you started to have more male friends?
Okay. So kind of like, I guess one of the things I mentioned, in the last episode was how I just didn't date because I didn't see the point if I wasn't planning on getting married. anytime soon. And a lot of that did come from the whole purity movement, which I have a lot of thoughts on that, but that too much to dive into now. But, yeah, so that, I mean, because that's how I grew up, was like during that time, I had all these like different like thoughts or like a different mindset on just like relationships with like opposite sex. And so, the switch for me happened because in college, I was like, okay, now I'm out of high school. So I'm in a place where I'm a little bit closer to being ready for marriage. So now I can allow men into my circle. Or even honestly at that point, boys into my circle because 18-year-olds, are they men? I have a lot of thoughts on that. But anyways, yeah. So it was like, now I can open the doors to whoever wants to be in my life. And that's not to say that in high school it was like, a guy wants to be my friend. I'm like, oh no, we can't be friends. Like I wasn't like a weirdo like that. Like nobody really knew this was a thing except for myself. So it wasn't like evident to the point where it's like, weird. Like she does not hang out with boys. Like it wasn't anything like that. Like this was just me, like mentally, like in my mindset of just like, no, I just don't do that. So yeah. So college, I was like, well, I'm out of high school. So the plan is after I'm done with college, get married. And if I'm going to do that, like I need to have some sort of men in my life, get to know people. And that's when the switch happened. But it was also going back to that. The switch wasn't, once again, it wasn't a thing of like, okay, now I'm going to have all the guy friends so I can see which one of them is my husband. Like it wasn't anything like that. Yeah. It was just like, just naturally, I guess, because in my head, I was like, oh, I'm at a place where I'm like good to move forward with that. So like, it's okay to have like male friends. And then I had all the male friends, which is funny now looking back. And so, yeah, but I feel like now, it's kind of, it hasn't reverted back to like my high school ways, like not at all. Like I do have male friends and stuff, but, I feel like I don't really have that many male friends. Like I feel like the majority of my male friends, I have a handful that I know like outside of whether they're married or in relationships that I know outside of the women in their lives. But the majority of like my male friends are like my friends' husbands or my friends' boyfriends and stuff. Yeah. So, yeah. So I don't know. It's an interesting journey I've been on, I guess, in just relationships in general. Honestly, just like with opposite sex of like going from not really having them to like having all of them to like, okay, what's a healthy balance of like, males and females. So yeah.
That's when you say balance, that's a good transition because I had a lot of male friends growing up, and then like I mentioned in episode 1 of our relationships, when I was married, I had all these friends that I was friends with when I was a kid, and then I'm married, and so I had to figure out a balance of, do I keep my friends? Yeah. And talking it through with my husband at the time, like, is it okay? Is it not okay? I mean, we had to go through that. We also got married really young, and we had a lot of mutual friends. But there was a time where I had to kind of balance, and I hate to say cut off some of those friendships, but just change how those friendships looked.
Yeah, which is understandable.
Yeah, even though most of them, if not all of them, were just plain relationships. There was no extra feelings and whatnot, but just for the image, I couldn't stay up on the phone with my homeboy until 1 o'clock at night, like we used to when we were in 11th grade. Because by the time I was a freshman in college, I was already married, and it was like, oh, well, I can't talk to you because my husband's like right here. So it was interesting. It was hard, actually. If I'm honest, it was really hard to take a step back from people I've known since I was 9-10 years old.
Yeah.
Went to church together, studied scriptures together, went to camp together, played sports together, saw each other go through hard times and tragedies in each other's families and stuff. And then all of a sudden I'm married and I got to cut off this relationship. So that part about having a lot of male friends was tough.
I think that's another thing too. Whenever I made the transition, like coming out of college and like, into my late 20s, early 30s, of being like, if at some point, because I feel like I've always been like a future minded person, but apart from that, I'm also very like, I feel like in that I've always been, when it comes to relationships, always been like marriage focused, if you will, of like where like when it comes to dating, like the majority of like, if I'm going to be in the dating world, it's really for the purpose of like, settling down at some point. Not necessarily that I'm like running out here chasing like, who's going to be my husband? Like, where he at? Like, it's not really a thing of that, but like, just like, I try to be purposeful. That's one area in my life that I can say, like, I try to be purposeful with, of like, if I'm going to do this, like, what is the purpose for me doing this? And so when it comes to, male friends, like even the transition from like coming out of college, that was one of the reasons for me why like some of my male friendships started changing. Cause I was like, okay, at some point I'm going to be married. And when that happens, I don't want it to be this whole thing of like, oh, now you're in a relationship and we can't be friends anymore. So if I start making small changes, it's like helping the other person transition without them realizing this is what's happening, of just like, this is what, like almost like setting more boundaries in terms of like what our friendship looks like, where it's like not the norm. Granted, I'm not a hypocrite, so I'm going to full transparency, but yes, there are still guy friends that I have that we will be on the phone for like hours on end, which I know at some point that's going to come to, a halt, but like slowly kind of like transitioning some of those, relationships to look a little different so that whenever that time does come, it's not this like dramatic thing of like, oh, we were cool. Now all of a sudden, like we can't be cool because you got a man in your life. Like, no, it's not the case. It's just like, just mutual respect for, the other person. But anyways, that kind of, brings me to the thing of, this wasn't something that we had mentioned talking about, but when you were talking about, like transitioning and going into marriage and like those friendships looking different, it made me think of this, but the whole thing of like friends with exes, like I find it fascinating when people are able to stay friends with their exes. Granted, like I understand in some situations, it's like, if it was, a healthy relationship or I don't know, like different things, like you are able to stay in each other's lives, but like, I don't know. I'm weird when it comes to that. There's one friend that I have and he's probably the only one. And it was the situationship I was talking about because like, in a way, like for the longest time, we were never on the same page about that whole situation. But now that it's over, all of a sudden we all got on the same page. We're like, what, we're kind of exes. And so he's probably the only one that I would say that like we had something and like stayed friends. Granted, I also haven't really like had a lot of relationships to where I can be able to say this one, we didn't stay friends, Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's, I don't know. It's interesting for me.
I think it depends on the type of relationship. I mean, now that we're adults, mm-hmm. right? We're in our 30s. Mm-hmm. And maybe some of our listeners have had a similar situation as you. Like, yeah. If the relationship was, I don't know, we go through some of the times, when we were like you mentioned, in purity culture. And so, yes, we were dating someone, but there was no extra stuff, right? Yeah. There was, we held hands. Yeah. There was no other adult things that were happening. Can you be friends with that ex? Sure. Why not? Depends, like, I feel like it just kind of depends on what all transpired in the relationship, what's happening now. Can you be friends with an ex you're married and now he's married and y'all are mutual friends and y'all go and have family dinners or whatever? Can you be friends with that ex? Probably, right? You both have your own people now. You're doing your own thing in life. Can you be friends with an ex who just started a business and y'all are co-collaborating? Yeah. Yeah. Why not? Because there's no extra stuff. Yeah. Would you have to set some boundaries? Yeah.
Right.
There definitely have to be boundaries, but I don't know. I feel like depending on what happened in the relationship, how the relationship ended, and how your future or current partner feels, you can be friends with an ex.
You're not wrong. I don't disagree. I just am weird.
You
like
just
that.
don't want to do it.
I'm just like, look,
hard
God-
cutoff. You're out of
God
here.
brought you into my life for a reason, and clearly that time has come and gone.
Yep. I mean, yeah.
Thank you. Next. Now it's different. I feel like, okay, I will say, and I haven't really had this, which is probably another reason why I've never really had the whole thing of like staying friends with an ex. If it was someone that we were friends prior to, you know, the relationship and all of that,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's one relationship that I might like fight for. While as like all of the others have been like from the get, it wasn't like, oh, we were friends and then it transitioned. No, like we know each other because we were interested in each other and like that type of thing. And so I think maybe that's another reason why I'm like, no, because when you came into you weren't really my friend to begin with. And so,
yeah,
I don't know. I realize that I'm weird when it comes to
no, that's valid.
because I mean, it's normal for some people to be able to like, you know, oh, we were friends. I mean, like, oh, we dated, it didn't work out, but like, you know, we're cool people, so we still stay in each other's lives. I'm like, And okay, so this was something someone in college said. And I remember when I heard him say this, I thought it was the funniest thing. He was like, oh, I could never date anyone in Texas. And I was like, okay, where are you going to date someone from? He's like, no, because, well, he might have said in like the Dallas area, maybe something like that. And I was like, why? Like, well, then where are you going to date someone from? And he was like, no, because if we break up, I would have to move. And I was like,
he would not date someone in the city that he currently lived in because if they broke up, he would have to move.
In the metroplex.
In the air. Okay. That's pretty big.
It's pretty big because no chances of like running into each other, I guess. I don't know. That was his thing. And I remember when he said that, I thought that was so funny. And as I started getting older, I was like, you know what? You might have a point.
Really?
I mean,
whole area.
Okay, listen, like I said, it was just for a moment. I don't still believe that. Like, I'm not trying to, we've done the whole long distance relationship thing, and I'm not trying to do that again. Yeah. And so anyways, needless to say, like my mentality on that has changed just a little bit. Like, yes, I would totally date, not totally like I have dated people that are close by. In fact, within like the same city. So, and we live in a pretty smallish city, I would say. And so I've only run into them once. But it was like from afar, so there's no interaction because, like I said, I don't really keep exes around. So
I think the only way I can relate on that, because I've never had that thought about leaving the city, but if I can be transparent, when I got divorced and then started dating on dating apps, it was kind of short lived. But one thing that I did do. And I don't know if I've ever told you this, but one thing that I did do was I was like, okay, well, I don't want to put my profile up in the city that I live in. So I would put my profile on, I live in a city like 50 miles away or 100 miles away. Like close enough for me to drive to go on that date if I wanted to.
Yeah.
But far enough that my ex-spouse or ex-boyfriend couldn't see that I'm on a dating app.
Yeah.
It wasn't that, I got to get out of here because he's here, but I just was kind of standoffish from him seeing like, what if he's on the dating app and he's scrolling and he sees that I'm out here looking, and just kind of, like an embarrassment or shame type of level. And then I didn't stay on the app long enough, but that was probably the one instance I could kind of relate. Cause I was like, well, how far would that drive me? Oh, an hour. Yeah. if we match or whatever, then I can drive an hour. That's no big deal.
See, that's where my logic kicks in, because then my thought process is, okay, so now you've set it to 50 miles away from you, meaning that is your central location. So it's going to do a radius of whatever around that location, city, which could easily push you even further out. Like that's where my mind would go. But, yes. Anyways. Yeah, no, granted, like I said, my mindset has changed a little bit. I have not cut out all the men in our metroplex.
It would be a shame to, though. I mean, honestly,
it would, because there's some pretty good people out there.
Yeah,
like I know the dating pool is something else right now, but there's still some gems that are like hidden somewhere.
And we live in now, if you live in a small town, this would probably be different, right? If you we live in a major, a huge city. So, and people are constantly moving here and moving out of here.
Yeah.
So to cut off the whole city would just be ridiculous. Cause where else are you going to find 4 million people? I mean, we live in a pretty large metropolitan area. So
there's 4 million people here.
I think the last time I checked, it was at least 2 million, but people have been moving.
That's wild.
People have been moving in and out. I could be wrong. I could check my numbers.
It wasn't relevant. I just was surprised by that number. Anyways, so friends with exes. That's
okay. 1.3 million.
That's still a lot.
That was in 2020.
That's still a lot of people.
That the 2020 census, 1.3 million in the city that we currently live in.
Wow.
And it's been 2 years since our last census, because it only happens every 10 years. So it's been 2 years. And I mean, honestly, I'm meeting people every other day at the grocery store saying, "Oh, where'd you move from?" "Oh, I moved from here, from there."
Yeah.
So, I mean, we probably are touching 3 million.
That's wild. That's crazy. Yeah. And how many, I wonder what the percentage of like single men is in that 3 million.
What do you should ask? We don't have an episode about that. We sure will. Cause I done ran the numbers. I know where they are. I know where they are and I know how I'm going to reach them.
Oh, you do?
Oh, I do.
I hope you can share.
I want to share.
Because
I am so excited to share.
Oh man, because I feel like some of the people that we've come across, there's some crazy people in this world. There's crazy people.
It's like everyone is just so different. I feel like we have become very much a society about ourselves. Everyone is selfish. Everyone is stuck in their ways. People don't want to change. People don't want to be understanding of different cultures. And as we get older, I feel like it's not getting any better. Yeah. And so, Oh, I had one more.
Oh, go for it.
We can definitely move on from here. But so friends with exes, I was talking to a friend, a coworker actually. And we kind of got on the topic of, and this is a little bit different for different people, but well, this is what I was telling her. She was like, "Oh, how's your relationship with your kid's dad?" And all this. I was like, we were friends before we got together. Right. Like you mentioned, we were good friends. And then, because of our kids, we've tried to always be respectful of each other and, like non-combative around each other and arguing and things like that. And it has definitely made co-parenting so much better too. And I don't feel like we're lying. We're not lying to the kids, but we have a good, respectful relationship. Yeah. In my new relationship or future relationship, that's going to have to be okay. Yeah. It's going to have to be okay. Right. Because it's part of our co-parenting. Now, do we stay up on the phone late at night? Again, there's boundaries. Right. Right. We don't stay up on the phone and do too much, but that's going to have to be okay in that new relationship because that's part of how co-parenting and the dynamic is cohesive for the kids. Yeah. And, sometimes it's a little awkward or whatnot, but so friends with exes sometimes might actually be a good thing in certain areas if you keep boundaries and,
That's definitely one of those things where I'm like, to each his own. Cause as you were explaining that, one of the things that came to mind was like my friend that I was talking about, the one that, the whole situationship that took place and the fact that, yes, we were kind of in a relationship without admitting it to ourselves until after it's over. Then we were like, dang, that's what it was. And with him, like we're still friends. We're still cool. We still talk. But I'm saying this because I've said this to him before. But I've told him, this is so bad. Almost like our days are numbered.
Oh no. Shay is gutted. She's like, listen.
Dramatic, maybe, possibly. But, I mean, we've had that conversation before where I was like, just being honest about where I'm at. And that's one thing that I try to do, like be honest with how I'm feeling about things, or be honest with where my head is at. That way, if I act on it, like, it's not really like a random thing of like, what happened? Where's this coming from? Like, no, I've made comments about this before. So even if it did happen, it's not a shocker. Whether that actually happens or not, I don't know, but I feel like it's just going to phase out like naturally. So it's not really a thing where I'm intentionally like, hey, just FYI, you've only got 2 years of us being friends. Like, it's nothing like dramatic like that. But like, I have peace about it, where I feel like that's probably what's naturally going to happen, and it's okay. And so anyways, yeah, that whole thing with friends with exes, once again, like with your situation, there's the fact that there's kids involved. So that plays a part.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, y'all were friends for a long time before you even started dating.
Right.
Or before you even got married.
Yeah.
And so there's all that kind of, goes into that. But like I said, I don't think I've ever dated any one of my friends. Granted, all through high school, I didn't have male friends. So there's that.
Slim pickings. Okay.
And then
can't date your friend if you don't have a friend.
And then in college, I don't know. I wasn't one of the fellas, but they accepted me. They took me into their circle of people because I really wasn't one of the guys, but it was just, like I said, always Shay and the boys.
They just enjoyed having you around.
They just enjoyed having me around. Yeah. And I never dated any of them.
Yeah.
And then
do you feel like they treated you like a sister? Was it that type of like, this is my sister, or?
Okay.
Like, were they friends with your brother, and then you're part of the guys? Like,
a little bit. So because my brother and I are so close in age, we shared a lot of the same friends, both male and female. And so if ever there was any kind of hangout or whatever, chances are both of us are going to be there. And so, but like with the guys, it wasn't even my brother that would invite me. It was the other guys. I'd be like, hey, Shay, are you coming? We're doing this. Hey, Shay, we're going to be at the house. You coming? Like, just it. So that was definitely like, my friends were the ones like inviting me. Not that my brother's not my friend, but you get my point.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, yeah, I don't know. That's just how it played out. But in that circle of friends, because when you said that, I was like, wait, okay. There was one guy. Him and I were friends. It's funny. It's sad. But, there was one guy that him and I became friends, and everyone was trying to set us up. And we got super, super close. We got super, super close. So him and I pretty much got to a place where people just assumed we were dating. And I was like, nope. Or assumed we were interested. And I was like, nope. But we got to a point where I remember we had a conversation, and I was like, hey, we've reached a point in our friendship where we've become too close. So one of two things is going to happen. Either we're going to end up dating each other, or we're going to have to like make some room in between the two of us to like, try and kind of kill off the feelings, if you will, if there's any on either side. And so, yeah, that whole situation. Yeah, I don't know. So maybe with him, there may have been a point where I was open to the idea of us dating, but I wasn't fully sold. Well, fast forward many, many years, cause him and I are still friends to this day. I mean, now he's happily married, he's got a kid and everything, but, him and I are still friends. But like before he got married, when I think he had just started this relationship that, with his wife, started the relationship before they got married. Yeah. So this was like right before they started dating, but I remember him and I had a conversation, and he just point blank asked me the question, why did you never want to date me? I was not prepared for that conversation.
He hit you with it.
Oh man, I sat there. We were sitting at the dinner table across from each other, and I'm at a loss for words, which is not me. I always have something to say. I'm at a loss for words, and I'm like, So anyways, all that to say, I guess in that circle of friends, not everyone saw me as a sister.
Yeah.
Good times. But that was a very, very uncomfortable conversation. And then I got emotional because I felt bad. And so It was just really funny. I mean, I laugh about it now, but in the moment I was just like, I don't know what to say. I'm so sorry.
I mean, I feel like you made a good, mature decision within yourself.
Yeah.
This is one of the things that I'm really big on communication. Like, again, y'all know me and Shay are very different. I communicate, maybe over communicate my thoughts and my feelings and asking questions.
Yeah.
All throughout, because I feel like that just, when you bring everything to the table, then you know.
Yeah.
So for him to come back a year later, however long it had been, to say, why did you never want to
this was like
me?
7 years.
Like, that's hard. Like,
it is hard.
I mean, you made the decision within yourself, which I feel is extremely mature of you, especially at that age, right? In your young 20s,
yeah, 23, like 20, 21.
Like, to have that maturity, but looking at the situation, like, that would not have been me. I would have.
I mean, we had the conversation. That conversation of like, we've reached a point of we're too close, we're either going to date or we're not. That was a conversation.
Y'all had that conversation.
We had that conversation.
What did y'all say in that conversation?
He said, okay, I think one of the things is, for me, I'm not very good with, when it comes to relationship stuff, I'm not very good with reading between the lines or like picking up on hints. Like, you just got to tell me like it is.
Yes.
That's how I am when it comes, just specifically, there's other areas of my life where like, I'll read between all the lines. Like, but like when it comes to relationships, that's one area where I'm like, no, say what you mean and mean what you say.
It's important.
Yes, because I don't play around with that. So I don't remember what his response was, but whatever it was, it clearly was not direct enough for me to get that, because I never got that from that conversation. Because at that point, I feel like it was almost like, and we've never really talked about this part, and we probably never will, because what's the point? But at that point, I feel like, I almost feel like he had reached a point where he was trying to see what my thoughts or feelings were on it. Like trying to read me. While I was like, from what I'm getting in this situation, it sounds like you're not really planning on moving forward. Granted, I was very dumb when I think about it, because he asked me to go out on a date with him throughout our entire friendship, I think 4 different times.
Okay.
And the first time I remember he asked me, and this was so rude, but I feel like people need to give me grace because I was only 21.
We'll give you grace. Absolutely.
But like, he asked me on a date, and it was over Skype because he had just moved off to college. And, we were both at a community college, and then he had moved to university. And so we were a distance away from each other. And so one of the days that we were on Skype for hours on end, he asked me on a date, and I didn't know how to respond. So I froze for a second, and it's Skype. So, I froze for a second, and then I just moved on with conversation and pretended like it never happened.
Wow. Okay. That's where the problem is.
So that was the first time. And this was prior to us having that conversation, I think. Or maybe we had just had that conversation. I don't know. We probably had that conversation.
Yeah.
And so looking back, it's like dumb. Like, the man, literally, you said exactly what it needed to be. Yeah. He asked you on a date, and you pretended like it never happened. So I felt bad. So I remember that night I sent him a text after we got off the phone, and I was like, or maybe the next morning, like, hey, I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have pretended like I didn't hear you. Ask me again, I'll say yes. So the man asked me again. Young Shay was so dumb. The man asked me again. And the second time he asked me on a date, I was like, okay, before I give you my answer. And I wasn't trying to like play a game. Like, it really wasn't. Like, I'm an overthinker. So I was thinking through all the things, and I'm thinking, this is my friend, and I want to make sure it's not a date just to go on a date. Like, because it meant something to me. Yeah. And I wanted to make sure if I'm doing something that means something to me, it hopefully means something to you too. And I understand, like, that's too deep. Like, it's so unnecessary. It doesn't matter. We were in a Christian community where they did this whole dating thing where it was like, everybody goes on dates so that everybody like gains dating experience. And I just wanted to make sure that's not what he's trying to take me on. Like, I don't know. Like, we're friends. Yeah. We have that relationship. And so like, if we're going to go on a date, this needs to be like a for real, like, we're not doing one of those like community dates or whatever. Yeah. Anyways. And so, so he asked me on a date again. Because I said, ask me again, I'll say yes. And I was like, okay, before I give you my answer. And I feel so bad. Like, I mean, it's all water under the bridge now. We've all moved on from it. It's all in the past. But he asked me on a date again. And I was like, okay, before I give you my answer, why do you want to go on this date?
Okay.
That was my question. And he was like, because I think it would be fun. I was like, that's not a good enough answer.
So did you say no?
I said no.
Wow.
Oh man, I felt like looking back, I was just so dumb. Like,
I mean, not entirely.
I mean, you're being kind.
In those ages, we don't really know what we
don't know.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I mean, again, for him to say, I think it would be fun, he probably didn't know how to elaborate on that, right? And say, I think it would be fun to spend time with you, getting to know you,
right?
And us doing fun things together.
Yeah.
You heard it'll be fun, and you immediately thought community date, but maybe what he had limited words, right?
Right.
He probably in his heart, he was saying, I think it'd be so fun to spend time with you, Shay, but he didn't say all of that.
Yeah.
So not that you're dumb, but like both of y'all in your young age
could
have used more words in your communication with each other.
Yeah. I guess we just didn't know how to communicate at the time. Anyway, needless to say, like, we're not those people anymore. Like, our communication is direct questions.
Yeah.
I didn't understand. What exactly do you mean by that? You know, like, so, yeah.
It's so important. If I can give a tip to the listeners, no matter what age you are, if you're in your 20s, hear us, right?
Yeah.
Hear us how we are saying, like, in our 20s, this is what we would have done differently is communicate better. But just relationships of any sort.
Yeah.
You have to have good communication between homegirls, between coworker and supervisor, between someone that you are interested in dating.
Yeah.
Between exes, communication is so important.
Yeah.
Say more words than you need to if need be, or ask questions. I should say. Ask the clarifying questions. What I heard you say was this. Is that what you meant?
Yeah.
Or when you said this is what I thought. Is that what you meant?
Right.
Because
there's no room for filling in the blanks. Because that's where a lot of the issues come from, is trying to fill in the blanks.
We're not mind readers. We can't read each other's minds. We have no idea. People come from different backgrounds, and there's different trigger words. There's different, you have to ask the questions.
Yeah.
So that's a tip from Jasmine and Shay. Just communicate. Yeah.
Yeah. Communication is key. And that's one thing. So you were saying how we're different. I think one thing that we can agree on, though, is like, even though we're different, when it comes to communication, I feel like both of us, the difference comes in when the communication happens. I feel like both of us are usually pretty good about, like, asking questions, saying what we need to. But like, I know for a fact, one of the things that was in your head when you said that was specifically when it comes to dating or I don't know, new friendships, if you will, with opposite sex that, maybe there's an interest, because I will not ask any question. If I'm like, look, there's this guy that I met, he's great, whatever. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to ask him like, hey, how are you feeling about me? Like, hey, nope, I'm not her. She is not me.
Okay. While
as I feel like on the flip side, you are more likely, not to say you would, but like you are more likely to be the person that would do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we're both good, like, with communication. It just, it's the when the communication happens that I feel like differs for us.
Very much so.
Yes. Cause we see it all the time. Anytime we're talking about like a new potential relationship type situation, it's always like, man, I can't sit back and wait. Like, I would ask the question. And I'm like, no, thank you. Nope, I'm not asking that question. Yeah. I might drop hints here and there, but like, no, the communication.
I don't even drop hints anymore. Y'all, she's like, I have asked people out on a date. I'm like, listen, young man. Okay?
Young man.
I think that you're handsome.
That's the most mom thing you've said.
Young man.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, Shay is 100% correct. I've that personality where I let people know how I feel.
Yeah.
And I ask them how they feel. I ask them to elaborate. And when it comes to dating, I have been known to ask a man on a date.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not going to wait for him to ask me on a date.
I won't.
I feel like I've noticed that we keep having these conversations in passing. And do you want to go grab a burger and we can talk more later? Or, like just in the setting, or go talk at Starbucks or something like that. Like, I will ask.
I'll invite them to group things.
Hey, yeah.
My friends and I are hanging out. Want to join us?
Yes.
Yes, that
counts. That counts.
That's more interactions. but like more interactions for like me and that individual as opposed to like, hey, you and me, let's go grab. No, sir. You can ask me.
It's really the same thing. You're just using the group as a cover. You're using the group as a cover.
Okay, that's fine. Then I'm always going to use the group as a cover because you're not going to catch me being like, young man, listen.
Hey. It just depends.
Yeah.
It just depends. But I think there's a lot of good in like you said, like you're already doing something with your people and you're inviting someone in to see, you know, because you feel like they would probably have a good time.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good in that. Right. And in one of the things in purity culture that we learned was like going together in groups. And I still feel like, courting is really good. Yeah. Courting allows you to spend time with the other person's families, and their friends, the people that they're closest to, so that y'all can really get an idea of what this person is like on their everyday. I still feel like that is a really, really good idea.
I agree.
So inviting out for a group is really cool. Me, it just depends on what type of person I'm picking.
No.
Cause it may not fit with all my groups. Depends what mood I'm in that day. Okay.
I think it's a good gauge, at least for me. I think it's a good gauge of like seeing how they interact with other people, seeing how, like, is this something that I'm even interested in? You know, like seeing them in a different element.
Yeah.
As opposed to just being like, you know, I don't know. Anyways,
different ways.
Yeah, different ways.
But I do in dating, if it is possible, I think it is important to get who you're interested in dating, or maybe y'all been dating for a couple weeks or months or so, to eventually get them around your people.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I mean, again, it just depends.
Especially if you intend on them being around for a long time.
For a while, yeah.
Yeah.
But I don't know, have I ever... No. No, it just depends on my mood.
Different.
I'm different. It really just depends on my mood.
Hashtag opposites in a nutshell.
Spot on. We'll talk about it. I mean, we'll have another time where we'll talk more in depth about our dating, right?
Yeah. Why not?
Yeah.
The world is our oyster. Yeah. Or the world is our nutshell. That was cheesy. Anyways, so yeah, I mean, I think that was good. Like that kind of, you know, covers our whole views on, you know, relationships with the opposite sex and exes and all that stuff. There's a lot that can be said about that. Like, especially, you know, we've lived lives. We've had all these experiences, but yeah, anyways. All right. Well, this was fun. Thank you guys for joining us. We hope you enjoyed the content. We hope you learned something new or, you know, felt encouraged in some sort of way. If ever you have any questions, definitely feel free to message us. We have an Instagram. It is at opposites in a nutshell. That is our Instagram handle. So you can send us messages on Instagram. And we'll respond, but, this is fun. We hope to see you guys next time and can't wait to hear from you. Have a good one. Bye.